Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say. In every democracy, citizens are not just voters, they are active participants in the entire governance process. In Nigeria, the legislative process presents unique opportunities for civic engagement. From electing representatives to tracking their performance, citizens have both the right and responsibility to influence how laws are made and how lawmakers perform. One of the lesser known but constitutionally protected ways citizens can do this is through the power of recall, a tool that enables constituents to remove underperforming legislators from office. It's a wonderful week, a beautiful episode on your favorite primetime show. My name remains Osiebe Mesale, and today we're discussing the role of citizens in legislative process. And I have a guest, Anderson Osiebe. He's the executive director of Hallow Mace Foundation, and he'll be joining me much later to have this conversation. Now, remember, Ways is all about you. You are the why in Ways. So be a part of the conversation. Add your voice to our conversations every single day. Head on to our YouTube channel. It's at Official Upgrade TV. Hit the subscribe button, like, share, invite your families and friends to join and watch the show as it's happening live. And when I open the phone lines, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. You can join us via WhatsApp. Just send us an add me on WhatsApp. I will be glad to have you join the conversation. Now, allow me to ponder, or allow me to allow you to ponder on my quote for the day. It says, only legislative, judicial, and executive action can completely guarantee the victory of the free world. And this was from Adam Clayton Powell, Jr. All right, so we'll delve into the conversation around the role of citizens in the legislative process much later. But first, let me run off on a break. When I come back from that break, I want to let you in on my news interest for the day. Stay with me. All right, I'm going to start off the news interest with this story that on the front page of Punch. It says, JAMB responds to Peter Obi's criticism of early exams schedule. The Joint Admission and Matriculation Board had responded to the criticism by the former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, over the early resumption time for its unified tertiary matriculation exam. Obi had, in a post on X on Sunday, decried reports of candidates, mostly teenagers, being asked to travel to examination centers as early as 6:30 a.m. Despite security concern, he described the situation as reckless, citing incidents of accidents and missing candidates, and blamed it on what he called Nigeria's inadequate investment in education. He said setting exams for vulnerable teenagers as early as 6 a.m. while transporting them across far-flung location is reckless. Already reports are emerging of students getting into accidents and losing their young lives, some going missing, and many more being subjected to unnecessary trauma. Who takes responsibility when a 15 or 16-year-old child disappears or is harmed while trying to access their right to education? So reacting to this post, JAMB has come out to clarify that while candidates are expected to arrive by 6:30 a.m. for verification and clearance, the examination officially begins at 8 a.m. In a post in his official handle, JAMB wrote, "Your Excellency, I must assert that our examination is scheduled to commence at 8 a.m., not 6 a.m., while verification and other clearance processes begins at 6:30. It is imperative that candidates are afforded adequate time to settle in before the exams begin." And the statement added, given that the tendencies often observed among Nigerians to arrive late when the start time is set without space for eventuality, this structured timeline is essential to ensure that all candidates are properly prepared and can perform to the best of their abilities. So let me just quickly speak to JAMB. What Peter Obi has said and what you have said, you have not said anything different from what he has said, because whether you put it that it is accreditation that starts at 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. It means that for a child, especially in Lagos, I don't know about any other parts of Nigeria, in Lagos, for a child to go and make it early at an accreditation point at 6:30, it means that that child probably would have woken up at 4:30 in the morning to get ready, shower, and then go into probably a commercial vehicle to get to the venue at 6:30 for accreditation. There's absolutely no difference between what the criticism that has been said and what you are trying to even explain. You're not making any sense. What I would have thought you as JAMB would say is, how do we ensure we start to have closer, centers for children writing an exam? If you go abroad, right, it is almost law that you cannot leave, and that's why a lot of people, they check with school ratings before they even rent a house. You cannot take a child too far away. There's a specific, it's just like I don't have that data now. There's a specific radius to which you cannot go past when going to go and give a child an education. But in Nigeria, literally when I was growing up in Kaduna, we were at two ends of the world. We were living core north and we're schooling core south. Right? It's a lot of journey. So we had to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning every day. So I get it. You might say, oh, it's discipline. Maybe that's what has made me who I am today, that I can wake up early even if I don't sleep too much at night. But the point is, the response I would expect from JAMB, right, is you are telling Peter Obi that we would ensure that we start to create closer centers so that when you are registering for the examination, you put your location and you get the nearest center closest to you, as opposed to traveling distance just because you want to write an exam, right? And I don't even think this JAMB, I'm so upset with JAMB. Because I've gotten a lot of reports. My son wrote JAMB. His classmate wrote JAMB. I've gotten a lot of reports how systems were crashing. So how do you explain to a child that lost one whole hour in writing an exam? If you do not have the capacity or the competence, right, to be able to hold this exam, then you should not be conducting an exam. So be guided, JAMB. I'll move on to my next story. NLC cancels May Day celebration in Rivers and Edo State. So I don't really know how this is even making news. I don't know who takes NLC seriously these days, but let me just read the story, right? It says the Labour Congress on Sunday announced the cancellation of centralized May Day celebrations in Rivers and Edo State, citing the imposition of emergency rule in Rivers and alleged political interference in the affairs of its Edo State Council. The national leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress directed all affiliated industrial unions in Rivers to limit the May 1st Workers' Day celebration to the state NLC Secretariat,
Similarly, unions in Edo State are to commemorate the day independently at their respective union secretariats. Directive was issued. I don't know how this is even making news, but hey, I don't know who takes NLC seriously. I just thought to mention it because it really, I don't know what importance, of what importance is this move or this action. I don't know what it will do or change. I'll move on to my next story. Federal government raises the alarm over surge in cyber slavery. Right, so the federal government issued a strong warning to Nigerians about the growing menace of cyber slavery, a rising form of human trafficking that is increasingly targeting young people in the region. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in the statement signed by the spokesperson, Kimiebi Ebienfa, expressed deep concern over the increasing number of Nigerian youth being lured abroad under false pretenses and forced into cybercrime operations under the inhumane condition. According to the ministry, many of the victims, including underage teenagers, are enticed with offers of high-paying jobs, particularly in the crypto industry. Once abroad, they are trafficked into what are described as sophisticated scam operations and held against their will. The incident highlights the severe exploitation and abuse associated with cybercrime operations, and it also underscores the need for enhanced efforts to combat such multi-billion-dollar criminal network and mitigate the susceptibility of victims. Yeah, you're right. We'll move on to the next story. Just for your information, FYI. Natasha Akpoti. I don't know whether I should read all these stories, but I mean, who saw the apologies? that was sarcasm at its peak. Okay, so the suspended chairman on diaspora and NGO, Senator Natasha, had issued a sarcastic and satirical apology to Senate President Godswill Akpabio, reigniting the discussion about gender dynamics and power struggles within the Nigerian legislative chambers. I think I will just leave it there. If you did not read that letter, I don't know whether you are hiding under the rock, but I just read the letter and I was just laughing. I was just laughing. I said, this woman, she does not even have you people's time, and she's not ready to even try to want to sugarcoat it anymore. I'm just hoping that beyond this, I really wish that, evidences will start to fly all over the place. That's all I'm looking for. That's all I'm waiting for in this Natasha's case. Our final story on a very sad note, because I looked at the story, I just said, oh my God, oh my God. So gospel singer Osinachi's husband has been sentenced to death by hanging. And his name is Peter Nwachukwu. He's the husband of the late Osinachi Nwachukwu. He's been sentenced to death by hanging by the Federal Capital Territory High Court, sitting in Wuse 2, Abuja. Justice Njideka Nwosu Iheme delivered the judgment on Monday after dismissing Nwachukwu's no-case submission. The court found him guilty of culpable homicide in connection with the death of his wife on the 8th of April in 2022. Nwachukwu was arraigned on the 3rd of June 2022 and faced the 23-count charge filed by the Office of the Attorney of the Federation, following pleas of leniency from Nwachukwu's counsel, Reginald Nwali. The court nevertheless sentenced him to death by hanging. He also received additional prison sentences from 6 months to 3 years on several other counts, and was fined a total of 700,000 naira. Yeah, on a very, very, very sad note. You know why I feel sad? I don't know what would have transpired between this couple, but you see, who are the people that are the biggest losers here, right? The biggest victims are the children. So, sad to say, mom was, unalived, and now the person that unalived her is being also sentenced to death, according to what the court has ruled, So it's just a sad thing. I want to say to anybody that is living in an abusive marriage, if you're living in an abusive marriage, as much as you can, don't think it can never be me. Walk away. right? What's the worst that would happen? She left her husband, or he left the wife. You are divorced. You are this. That's the worst that would happen. Like, literally, what's the worst thing that would happen? You'll be mocked for leaving the marriage, right? That's the worst that can happen. But you are going to be alive, and you're going to be well. You're going to be fine. So instead of staying in an abusive marriage or staying in an abusive relationship, please, I plead with you. Because you see, my coach used to say, God rest his soul, what does not cost life can be replaced. Every other thing can be replaced, but life cannot be replaced. So please, if you are in an abusive relationship, I would emphasize it again and I'll say it again, walk away. I'll take a break. When we come back from that break, let's discuss our legislative arm. Stay with me.
Life is made up of moments, some that fill us with joy, others that test our strength. Welcome to Heartlines. This is our space to explore the highs and lows of human connection, the love, the heartbreak, and resilience that shapes our life. From relationships to friendships, parenting to partnerships, and so much more. Every week, we share stories and conversations that define us, navigating love, separations, the struggles of parenting, dealing with anxiety and managing the pressures and stress of life. Real conversations that bring us closer, helping us heal, grow, and connect. So join me Mondays through Fridays at 10 p.m. for Heartlines, the show where we connect hearts, have real conversations with real people, one story at a time.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light from my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
The legislature is the arm of government responsible for making laws. In Nigeria, this includes the National Assembly at the federal level, that's Senate and House of Representatives, and the state houses of assembly at the state level. The legislative process involves multiple stages: bill initiation, debate, committee review, public hearing, passage, and presidential assent. At every point, there is space for citizens' input and oversight. So today's conversation hopes to highlight the broader role of citizens in the legislative process, while also exploring the recall process as one of the many instruments of accountability available to the Nigerian electorate. Joining me to shed more light is Anderson Osiebe. He's the Executive Director of Harlow Mace Foundation. Yes, thank you so much for joining me, Anderson.
Thank you so much. It's just I don't know your name, so let me just end it there. Thank you for having me and finding me worthy to be on your show.
You can call me Uwa.
Uwa, okay. Thank you so much, Uwa.
Thank you for having me. All right, so let's have this conversation, right? We've talked about this thing almost, for 4 weeks now. Again, in partnership with Enough is Enough, we keep getting different kinds of guests, to just talk about the citizens' role in, ensuring that they're part of the process of governance, And one of the most critical parts of governance in Nigeria is the legislative, the arm of the government. And it seems like, I think with doing this thing now, God knows how many years now, since 2013, oh gosh, I don't taste small for the game. I mean, I have this consciousness now of how, if there were, maybe if I could overlook it before, it is now very, very more pressing to understand that, your legislative arm is as critical as your executive arm. But not many Nigerians understand this process, understand this, this simple principle, right? So just in your general assessment, right, how well are citizens, engaging in the legislative process?
Okay, thank you so much. You see, let me make you understand something. You talked about the legislature, and we know quite well that the legislature belongs to the people, And I want to say that one of the reasons why the legislature, both at the federal level and the state level, is the way it is because we don't have that level of citizens' engagement and participation. They feel that the legislature is not that an important arm of government, to engage, right? But for the purpose of this discourse this evening, I have some key highlights, that I want to talk about. I've highlighted 4 key areas where citizens, can engage and can be part of the process, the legislative process, because I think that's one of the major challenges, one of the major problems that we have in Nigeria presently. So as the conversation begins, let me look at it from, firstly, you say, what is the role of the citizen in a legislative process? We looked at it, we said, okay, firstly, number one, role of the citizen is influencing lawmaking decisions. Number one, that's number one. Influencing lawmaking decisions. It is the duty of the citizen to make sure that the lawmaking process, within the parliamentary contest is influenced. Now, let me break it down. One, firstly, is providing input on policy issues. Right? Because when you don't provide input, when you don't make input on policy issues, you see that the lawmakers, the representatives that you've sent to the National Assembly or the State House of Assembly to go and represent you will have a field day. Right? So it is important that as a citizen, that you must influence lawmaking decisions. There are decisions that you must influence. There are decisions you must be part of. Right? Now, another one we're looking at is advocating for specific legislations. Yeah, because a very good example of advocating for specific legislations has to do with the gender bill that's before the House of Representatives right now. You could see the level of engagement by the Nigerian women. You could see the level of awareness they've been able to create with those gender bills and all of that. So those are part of the process. That is how citizens, can be part of the process of legislative process and all of that. So let's continue. Another one we are going to be looking at is participating in public hearings. Yeah, participating they are very key. They are very important. Citizens do not participate in public hearings. Citizens do not care. In fact, if I take statistics of number of Nigerians now, they don't even know what public hearing is, But we are going to get down to the reason why they don't want to participate in public hearings. They don't want to participate in anything that has to do with the legislature. Even most of them don't even want to participate even in the political process entirely, not just the legislative process. Okay?
Yeah. You know what?
I'm taking you then. I'm breaking it down for you now. You see. The other one is also contacting your representatives. It is your duty as a citizen, right, to contact your representative. Most of you don't know that it is that your representative has a duty to provide you with a job. Your representative has a duty to make sure that you're ably represented in terms of either you're looking for a job, who to reach out to, you're looking for whatever you're looking for. You're looking for recommendation letters, all right? All those things are the job of the representative. But where the citizens are not aware, then it becomes a problem. Because I'll give a very good example. I have a couple of people who have approached me, to help them get jobs. And most of them, I call them to my office here and I interview them. Most of them don't even know what federal constituency means. Most of them don't even know what senatorial district means. Now, so when you don't know what federal constituency means, or you don't even know what senatorial district, so how do you now know who represents you, either in the Senate or in the House of Representatives, or even the state in the state parliament? So yeah. Those are issues that people, like most citizens, need to take very seriously, and all of that. So, number two on this is accountability. Yeah, but when you get involved in the legislative process, you're holding your lawmakers to account. See, it's not rocket science. See, let me tell you, you must be engaged. You must participate in the process for you to be able to hold your representative accountable. Now, let me break it down. How do you hold your representative accountable in the area of accountability? First, monitoring legislative activities. When they were campaigning, they came up with so many promises and all of that. Do you know that there's what we call constituency projects? Yeah? Do you know that you need to monitor your lawmaker in the area of the number of bills that is sponsoring, the area of the number of motions, the area of number of petitions, and all of that? Those are the things. Those aspects are as your duty as a citizen, because when you don't monitor all those things, your representative has a field day. He does what he likes. He comes to your federal constituency, senatorial district, and tell you all the whole lies and all of that. You will believe because you're not even part of the process, right? Secondly, is expressing opinions on bills, motions, empowerment programs, and projects. Now, I just told you about constituency project now, because when these things are attracted, this doesn't come in the form of money. This is coming in the form of attraction, right? You lobby for it, and it's captured in the budget. Okay? Now, most of the times, this constituency project has to do with your federal constituency or senatorial district. Yeah, it simply means that you're taking something back to your people. Okay? Now, this is part of good governance and all of that. Okay, so now how do you monitor it? How do you make sure that these things are even on ground? How do you make sure that even most of the projects that he has attracted have been executed? How do you now make sure, how do you even know that your representative is even doing well on the floor of the Senate or the floor of the House of Reps? Through bills, through motions, through public petitions, and all of that.
Okay,
those are your responsibility.
Okay, Anderson, when you started off the conversation, right, you said something around the people, the legislature belongs to the people. Do you think the Nigerian populace understand this, that the legislature belongs to them? Or you think that it is...
How do you... How do you now know when you're not even participating in the process?
Because, you see,
how do you know?
Everything you have said, right, is something that is a responsibility for somebody that is aware. And they know that these are my responsibilities and this is how I need to engage. But there's a fundamental problem here, right? There is a lack of knowledge. There's a lack of awareness as to how much power citizens wield when it comes to engaging, especially with the legislative arm of government. I said it that prior to now, even I was a victim of that ignorance as well, right? Because whenever I went to the polling unit before now, I never paid attention to who were on those ballot papers at the legislative arm. All I cared about was who I was voting at the executive level. Then whoever I was voting at the executive level just took on. So whatever party that person belonged to, automatically I would vote across the entire value chain, right? Automatically. That was how even I voted until recent elections, where I became a lot more enlightened. I became aware of the importance of the legislative arm of leadership. And now it's no longer just voting across party lines. It is now focusing on who are the individuals that are coming out on those ballot papers, and do they deserve my vote? Now paying attention. So when you said that the people, the legislature belongs to the people, my question to you, Anderson, do these people know that they wield that much power, that the legislature belongs to them? Before we even start to talk about their responsibilities to recall, their responsibilities to keep the legislature accountable, their responsibility to be the checks and balances, their responsibility to monitor the bills, their responsibility to engage on, public hearings and consulting and all of that. Before we even talk about all those things, like the process, the legislative process and how citizens should engage, do they know that the legislature belongs to them?
No, you see, unfortunately, they don't know. Most of them don't know. I mean, I could say that majority of them don't know. So that's why people like us are advocating, for continuous engagement with the people. You understand what I'm saying? We have, for us at Hello Miss, we have a couple of programs that we do, week in, week out. We have seminars, engagements, conferences that we do to make people understand the powers that they have, to make people know that the power, to elect and recall lies to them. All right? So you just said it now that before now you didn't know. So that's what I'm saying, that in fact, it's a general thing that most people do not even know, what their rights are. Before now too, before I went into legislative practice and all of that, before I became a legislative advocate, I was not concerned about who was the senator. In fact, I didn't even know what they were even talking about. I didn't even know what they said. They said someone is a senator, someone is a House of Rep member, someone is a member of the House. I asked, what did they go to do there? But as time went on, I started learning the process. I started understanding that, look, the most important arm of government is not even the executive arm of government. It is the legislative arm of government. Those are the things that people like us have tried to preach over time. Now, look, you have to understand that the legislature is number one. Because, you know what? It is the legislature that controls everything that happens in other arms of government. The legislature has the power of the purse. The legislature is the only institution in the world that a president bows to. In the whole world, I'm not talking about Nigeria, I'm talking about the US, I'm talking about the UK, I'm talking about China, I'm talking about Japan, I'm talking about Canada. The legislature is the only institution in the world where the president of that nation bows to. So you can see, and this legislature is made up of the people. It is the people that elected them to go and they are the representative of the people. So there must be continuous engagement, all right? There must be a system where they will also encourage people like us to continue the engagement of sensitizing Nigerians on their rights, sensitizing Nigerians on the importance of the legislature. Because until people are aware, they will never know.
All right, let's take a breather, right? Let's go on a very short break, because I'd love to come back on this conversation and to now start to intentionally even start to educate people on some of these roles and how you need to start to pay attention, because I think that's the foundation of some of the challenges that we have. But stay tuned, we'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying tuned. Now, if you just tuned in, we are discussing the role of citizens in legislative process, right? Please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Our phone lines are also now open. The numbers to call are 07025 007749 or 07014242420. It will be important for you to add your voice to this conversation and let us know why it matters. So, I mean, before we went on the break, I mean, you were spot on, touching on, how powerful the legislative arm of government is, that it is the only institution that presidents across the world, bow to. Every other institution, they kind of, but you see, I am looking at our current, is it the 10th Assembly now? I don't know what to call them, and I'm wondering.
10th Assembly, 10th
Assembly. And I'm wondering, I mean, if they wield that much power, does it not seem like they have handed their powers back to the executive, to the president? Please help me, educate me, right?
Okay, you see, let me tell you something, prior to the leadership election in 2023, I came up with a group, the Parliamentary Advocacy Network, and one of the things that we did at that time was to go around the major senators to discuss with them and try to see how we can come up with a very sellable candidate and all of that, So, and we met a couple of them, Senator Yari, Senator Akpabio, and a whole lot of them, then, and we discovered something. We got to discover that no matter how we try, that Mr. President, had already made up his mind on who he wanted as Senate President, as Speaker, as Deputy, and as Deputy Senate President, and all of that, So we issued a press conference, and calling on, the new members then, to try as much as possible to vote their conscience, because we discovered that a lot of them didn't want Akpabio. A lot of them didn't even want the Speaker and all of that. But they didn't have an option. They didn't have a choice because their hands were tied. Okay? So, but let me tell you, when you have a legislature that is being handpicked by the executive, let me not say president now, by the executive arm of government, and they handpick them and say, this is the people that we want. What we are witnessing now in this 10th National Assembly is what you should expect to happen. You understand what I'm saying? Because when the president calls the shots, all right, the Senate President and Speaker must obey. They must fall in line because he was the one who appointed them. So that's why we kicked against it. We said, look, there was a need for members at that time to, elect whom they wanted. Because when you elect who you want, you see that the executive arm of government, the legislative arm of government, we have that power, we have that control, over what happens. We'll be able to stand firm and look at the Mr. President to the face and say, Mr. President, this bill or whatever or request you're making cannot fly. But I can tell you now, I can bet you now that it can never happen in this 10th National Assembly because all of them were handpicked. So that is the reason why most Nigerians see them as rubber stamp. Yeah, when you have a rubber stamp legislature, that's what you expect. So for people like us, we expected it. Yeah. So, but I could say that even the House of Representatives is like the driver of the National Assembly. Yeah, because they've come up with some couple of things. They come up with some couple of agenda and all of that. But the Senate is a write-off entirely. It's a write-off completely. You could see what's happening between the controversy between Senator Godswill Akpabio and Natasha, Senator Godswill Akpabio and other senators and all of that. So we saw it coming, and so Nigerians should just take it like that because we shouted and we called for support. They never give us that support.
No, but why would you tell us to take it like that? Wait, to Anderson.
Maybe to 2027. Maybe to 2027 when we'll
No. Anderson, we have power now. There's power of recall. How can you tell us to take it like that? Kilo day. Because you see, people, whenever we are talking about these things, it's important to let the people know why it matters. Because why it matters for us to engage in the legislative process is that it reinforces the principle that lawmakers work for the people and not for themselves, right? It also encourages lawmakers to remain accountable and engaged. It serves as a deterrent, right, to absenteeism, corruption, and poor representation. This is why citizens must engage. So you cannot tell me that we should take it like that in 2027. Sure, they have showed us way of how to recall, the legislative representative that is not doing well, right? But you see, so we should try that, and maybe this time around, if it's coming from a genuine, pool of people, I'm sure it will go through. But what are the challenges to effective citizen participation? Because I understand that, yes, we need to engage, but there must be something that is blocking that engagement, right? So what are the challenges that is not giving that effective engagement, that participation that you would really love to see citizens engage in that legislative process?
You see, firstly, I feel it's first of all lack of awareness. Because for you to be able to do anything, you must have awareness. You must know that this thing exists. You must know that this is my right. Okay, you also must know that this is what I'm supposed to do. So firstly, there must be that awareness that yes, I know that I'm supposed to do this, and this is exactly what I'm going to do. I think that's one of the major challenges. Number one, okay. So then number two, I feel has to do with poverty. Yeah, because poverty in the sense that when people are hungry, the first thing they'll begin to think about is how they can feed their stomach. They don't care about what happens and all of that. Those are things. Those are some of the things that are mitigating against this, engagement. So poverty is key, and funny enough, the politicians know how to play around, with this number two that I just mentioned, poverty, because they know that once they stab you, they can easily get what they want. I think those are the things. Then second, another one again is the level of corruption. The level of corruption in this country has made it very difficult for people. Let me give you a story. I have one honorable member who is my friend. The day I engaged him in his office, and I said, "Sir, why is it that your office is always locked? Why is it that most times, even when your constituents come, they don't have access to you?" You know what he told me? He said, "Look, Anderson, I bought my vote. I bought my election. Yeah, there is nobody that will say you did not collect money. There's no leader in my federal constituency that will say you did not collect money from me to vote for me, because they came to my house, I gave them money to go and give their people. So I paid for each ward. Correct? So now that since I paid for it, nobody has a right to come to my office to either ask me for employment. Nobody has a right to either ask me to come and submit a petition. Nobody has a right to either come to my office and say, okay, that I'm looking for a job and all of that. So you see where poverty plays a very fundamental role as a blockage, in engaging. So those are the things, so we're able to, first of all, make people be aware of their rights. I think we'll begin to win. That's one of the major things that we are supposed to do.
Before we come to recommend,
let's make people understand that, look, this is my right. This is what I'm supposed to do as a citizen. And even when the lawmaker comes and brings so much money to me and says I should vote, I will not vote. I will vote my conscience. But
absolutely.
How many people are willing to vote?
to do that. Before we even come to recommendation, I would love to also add that political intimidation, because, again, if you see the process with Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduanga, you would understand that there is a level of intimidation, or a very high level of intimidation. If she were not to be a very strong senator, she would have cowered out. You know, she would have just, you know, recoiled back into her shell and just say, okay, whatever you want, please, oh, you know, because, I mean, when the president declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, one of the things that came to my mind was that that I felt the president was sending a strong message to other PDP governors. It's either you fall in line or you fall out of, you know, because for me, the process is not really whether it eventually went through. It was the process to which, you know, everything just played out. Given the fact that in so many quarters, they have said that constitutionally, that shouldn't have happened. You not only declare a state of emergency, you also suspended a duly elected governor, his deputy, and his entire members of the House of, Assembly. So that, for me, is a high level of political intimidation that says that it's either you do what I want or, you know, you are kicked out of the system. So, I mean, if we have a system that does not obey the rule of law, that does not obey any form of, you know, judgment, you know, that seems not to favor them, how do we now proceed? You know, how do we go ahead? How do we fight back? How do we preserve the democracy that we are practicing? I had a conversation on Thursday when I was talking about a one-party system where it seems like everybody now, with all the defecting and moving to the APC, that it seems like Nigeria is becoming a one-party country. In fairness, I really couldn't care less, because I see that it seems like a waste of resources campaigning and going through elections, through INEC and all of that in this country. Because if rule of laws are not obeyed or political due processes are not followed, then there's no point. It's better we have a one-party country where we just say, you know what, let's hold you accountable. No need to waste our money on election. No need to waste our money on going to court or anything. Select who you want to select. When you have selected the person, we will now hold the person accountable. But that's just my theory. So what would you say about political intimidation, how it's impacting engagement of citizens in this legislative process?
No, when you talk about political intimidation, you know, it's something is something that I'm trying to borrow the word now. It's something that is part of our political system, yeah, because, you know, what they always try to do with political intimidation is that when they can't get you, you know, to play along with them, they try to intimidate you, you know, to knock you off, so that to weaken your base, so that they use that political intimidation to weaken you, so that at the end of the day, you really don't want to say you want to come out and join them. You know? So I think those are the things that political intimidation does. You know, so it's part of our system, our kind of democracy, most especially in Africa and all of that, and most especially when it has to do with a woman. You know, because women has this, you know, soft way of perhaps, you know, doing their things, because when you, if not because you just mentioned Natasha, now if not because Natasha is strong and she's actually also well grounded, and she also has some level of backing, strong backing. I mean, by now she should have been forgotten. Okay, so I think political intimidation is another one area that we also need to you know, talk about. We also need to you know, dwell on very seriously, you know, so that at the end of the day we could, you know, either agree that there's a need to either come up with a legislation, okay, that will either protect the politically exposed. Yeah, I think if I want to use that language now, but the politically exposed, yes, like the women and all of that. That is the reason why, you know, citizen engagement is very key, because when we see that there's a high level political intimidation and you know, and all of that, okay, we as citizens can come up and say, look, why don't we come up with a legislation that will protect, the less powerful, from being intimidated and all of that. So I feel that the moment people begin to engage on political activities, most especially legislative process and activities and all of that, all these things will begin to take shape. Like I said earlier, I said one of the major reasons that why the legislature, most especially in Nigeria, is the way it is because of lack of participation of citizens. Because the moment we begin to engage, the moment we begin to ask questions, you see that our representative will begin to sit up. Yeah,
okay, so let's quickly touch on recommendations quickly, because we're running out of time very quickly, right? What would be your recommendation? You touched on civic engagement in terms of awareness, and encouraging the public to get involved in public hearings, and just be engaging the, the legislative processes. So what else would you add, in terms of recommendations, so that we just wrap up the conversation?
No, first of all, one of my number one recommendations that I will say this evening is for citizens to understand, their rights and make sure they pursue it, and also try as much as possible to engage even locally, because politics is local, because when you engage with your lawmaker or your senator and ask questions and get involved in what's happening within that locality, you see that you begin to come closer to governance and all of that. So my number one recommendation today will be, I think I wrote it somewhere, is to, first of all, be active participants in electioneering process. Yeah, don't stop sitting on the fence. Make sure you get involved. Make sure that in every activity, in every town hall meeting, in every public consultations, in every join advocacy groups. All right, have a lot of you can even come up with a lot of advocacy groups in your federal constituency, in your senatorial district, and all of that. I'm not saying come up with a very violent advocacy group. I'm saying engagement. Because I believe that the only form of good governance is through proper engagement, because that's the only way we can move forward as a nation. Because when you engage properly, you definitely get results. But when you want to take it by violence, you feel that politics is, because that's one of the things that they tell them in Nigeria, that politics is part of politics is violence. So people like us don't preach that. We preach peace, we preach harmony, we preach peaceful coexistence and all of that. So firstly, get involved in the process. Get involved in the process.
Absolutely.
Then ask so much questions. Now, when you get involved in the process, you see that, I'm trying to also see borrow the word, because I don't really understand why somebody will be alive and there's a process and you're not even interested in it, in the process. So I feel first thing you need to do is to get involved in the process. When you are involved,
then you can then understand it better. Absolutely. Thank you so much. We've had an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. So you can also invest in civic tech tools that simplify access to legislative data. You can also encourage transparency by pushing for regular lawmakers' scorecards. You can also protect whistleblowers. So in case somebody knows a lawmaker and it blows a whistle, you can engage and protect them, so that those citizens don't get backlash, because active citizenship doesn't end at elections, or it doesn't end after the elections, right? It doesn't end after the polling units. Nigerians have a constitutional and moral responsibility to stay engaged in how laws are made and implemented. So whether it's attending public hearings like our guests, rightly mentioned, or submitting petitions, or even using the recall process, the role of citizens in the legislative process is critical to building a responsive and accountable democracy. We have to engage. If we really want to see the change that we are hoping for, we have to engage. So thank you again to our guests, and thank you for watching as well. Before I go, please ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at Official Upgrade TV. Share the links, like, share, comment, send to families and friends. If you miss even your enemies as well, send to your enemies. If you missed our quote for today, it says, only legislative, judicial, and executive actions can completely guarantee the victory of a free world. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. Do enjoy the rest of your evening.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, lives a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.
Hey guys, it's Oluchi for Ways Breakfast. Thanks for always tuning in. Our research has shown that you're probably not subscribed to our channel. What are you waiting for? Make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you never miss out on our latest content and stay in the loop with all things Ways. If the channel grows, it means more great content for you guys. So hit that subscribe button now.